Welcome, one and all, sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, to another one of my special wizard tales.
Pocahontas. Following a long journey, Pocahontas had arrived in London, England, with her husband, Sir John Rolfe, and their young son, Thomas. You can only imagine how she must have felt, gazing out over this strange new land for the first time, with all its tall steeples, high towers, grand manors, and magnificent castles. London was the home of the white man, and not at all like her homeland in the Americas. She was the daughter of the mighty chief Powhatan of the Algonquin tribe, a proud and noble people who loved and respected the land and all life. Pocahontas was very excited to meet the King and Queen of England. A beautiful coach had arrived at the ship's dock to take her and her family to the royal palace. From inside the coach, Pocahontas watched in amazement as the city passed by.
It looked so lovely from the ship. The air is not like the sweet air of my forests and rivers,
remarked Pocahontas as the carriage swept through some of the less desirable parts of the city. Finally, the carriage entered the palace grounds as it passed through beautiful park-like gardens. Pocahontas first met Lady Margaret, who helped her change into the gorgeous gown she would wear before the King and Queen. Pocahontas looked dazzling. Suddenly, just as she was being summoned to the presence of the King and Queen, Pocahontas decided to change her dress. Lady Margaret was appalled as she advised Pocahontas.
Change? You can't keep the king waiting!
To that, Pocahontas replied smugly,
The King of England can wait for Princess Pocahontas.
History was to be made that day for Pocahontas. But the real story began years before in a faraway land known then, and even today, as America. And this is how her adventure began. The English began to settle in the land of the Indians in the year 1606. The land that Pocahontas and generations of Native Americans before her had called home. Led by Captain John Smith, they arrived in huge boats with big, billowy sails, something no Indian had ever seen the likes of before. The Indians were fearful of these strange new intruders. Indian scout Yellow Wolf watched in disbelief as men with white faces and strange clothing approached the shore. Yellow Wolf raced back to the village to report the news. Chief Powhatan was greatly concerned as he sighed.
It means the white man has come to our land again. I have heard of them from my brothers to the north, and they have great power. The coming of the white man is an omen. All will change.
Chief Powhatan could see the future in his dreams. In the coming of the white man, he envisioned the destruction of their land, customs, and peaceful way of life.
White man, all will change,
he repeated. A year had passed after the English had founded their new colony of Jamestown. The settlers were enduring tremendous hard times as they watched their buildings collapse and their comrades die of sickness, disease, and starvation. Desperate for food, the settlers attempted to approach the Indians for some of their corn. The Indians saw this as an opportunity to trade their corn for the white man's guns. As hungry as they were, the Englishmen did not trust the Indians and would never give them weapons. And when one brave grabbed a gun, a struggle began. Chief Powhatan, wanting to keep peace, commanded his braves to give the corn to the white man. The settlers gradually regained their strength and rebuilt their colony. But this time, they expanded its boundaries by clearing more land. Then, for protection from the Indians, they built a huge barricade around the entire settlement. Chief Powhatan watched angrily as more and more of their precious land was being ravaged by the white man.
We have given white man our food. To repay us, white man takes our land. White man takes our land. Now he must pay,
He cried during a meeting of the Indian chiefs of the neighboring lands. In a unanimous decision, the chiefs agreed to wage war against the settlers.
White man will pay.
White man will pay.
White man will pay!
Echoed their voices as thousands of Indian warriors forged into battle at Jamestown. The handmade weapons of the courageous Indian warriors proved ineffective against the mighty guns of the settlers. And the tribes were forced to retreat. Until that day, Chief Powhatan had never known defeat in battle. But now, he understood the full and terrible power of the white man. For days following the battle, life had seemingly returned to normal for the Jamestown settlers and for the Indians. But while leading a small expedition in search of a river that would lead to the ocean, Captain John Smith was captured by Indian braves and taken to Chief Powhatan. Captain Smith feasted with his captors before they were to make the decision whether he would live or die.
Die. White man must die.
Death to white man!
Shouted the tribe leaders. But Chief Powhatan had other plans.
I say, white man lives. We trade with him for fire sticks. Then all white man die.
Exclaimed the chief. The tribe leaders held steadfast in their decision, and the vote was unanimous. Captain Smith would die. As Captain Smith remained tied to a post, Pocahontas approached this pale stranger in the hope of understanding him more. To her, he seemed as brave as any Indian warrior. By touching his face and his beard, she realized that he was a real person made of flesh and blood, just like herself. At daybreak, just as Captain Smith was about to be executed, Pocahontas burst onto the scene, screaming to stop this act of murder.
No! White man does not die. I claim his life.
Exclaimed Pocahontas as she threw her body over his to shield him from a deadly blow.
You kill him, you must kill me.
As the daughter of a powerful chief, Pocahontas, too, had the power over life and death. Now, the prisoner's life was her responsibility. In the days that followed, Pocahontas and Captain Smith sat together as they each taught the other of their language and customs. Chief Powhatan offered to release Captain Smith in exchange for guns. When he was returned to Jamestown, Captain Smith offered them their gun, a very large cannon. When the braves were unable to move the large gun, they felt deceived and promised revenge. That revenge came suddenly, when days later, Captain Smith became very ill with fever and was forced to return to England. Disappointed that he'd not fulfilled his plan for peace for the colony, he boarded the ship.
I intended to bring the young Princess Pocahontas to Jamestown. Pocahontas would bring peace. I'm certain of that. Powhatan would not dare attack Jamestown if his daughter was here.
Said Smith. Pocahontas set out on a journey to visit Captain Smith in Jamestown, not knowing that he had already set sail for England. She was greeted by armed guards who decided to take the opportunity to follow Smith's plan. They apprehended her and held her hostage in the colony. Pocahontas was taken to live with a minister and his family. Slowly, she adapted to the white man's customs and learned to eat with strange tools. She even began wearing their clothing and was christened with a new white name, Rebecca. One day, she met a new member of the colony when she offered her advice to help his garden to grow.
Your plants need soil from the floor of the forest and sweet water from the river. Otherwise, they will die,
explained Pocahontas. And while she taught him about growing crops, he told her all about England.
It was as though I had been looking for this man, John Rolfe, all my life,
thought Pocahontas. And they were married.
It was the happiest day of my life. Not only was I married to the man I truly loved, but his people and my people made our wedding a coming together of white and Indian. I was married in peace.
Years later, at the invitation of the king, John and Rebecca and their young son traveled to London. John had been knighted, and Rebecca was to be recognized as the First Lady of the Americas. It was a dream come true for Princess Pocahontas as she proudly walked into the Great Hall in her full native dress to be honored by the king himself.
Thus another fine wizard tale concludes. Sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, join me again soon for another classic tale. Won't you?